Welcome back everyone to another video on Persona 4's unused content. This time, we're going to cover cut dialogue from the main story. All of these lines are fully voiced in both English and Japanese, but for whatever reason, and these reasons I will be speculating on as we cover them, they were removed from the final game. Before we begin though, I just want to stress, we did not lose anything particularly significant. In fact, I actually think the game is much better for having cut most of this dialogue, and you'll see why once we get into the meat of the main stuff that was cut out. But before we go into unused voice dialogue, there was an unused text scroll that was supposed to display after selecting the difficulty when you start a new game. Thank you for purchasing Persona 4. Before we begin the game, we'd like to ask you, the player, for a favour. This game has several mystery-style factors that involve finding the killer behind a series of heinous murders. Even if you yourself have any clues about the criminal's identity, please keep them to yourself. Your clues or theories may deprive others of the fun of discovering the story for themselves. Besides, the truth you find may not be the real truth. TLDR, don't ruin other people's fun by spoiling the game. I wonder if they thought this was a bit too condescending, especially given what Atlus would later be known for when it came to cracking down on streamers with Persona 5. But it might have also been cut because it very heavily hints at the bad endings existing, and they have more impact if you don't see them coming. The downside of this though is that it takes away most of the foreshadowing for the true ending, at least in the PS2 version. And from starting a new game, we go into Igor's opening Velvet Room monologue. 3 lines were cut from this one.
However, the tower represents not just destruction, but rebirth as well. But people tend to stake their lives on the path that is laid before them, scarcely giving a thought to what awaits them at the end of the tunnel.
I like Igor's comment on the tower, but it is basically just fluff that doesn't really add much to the story. 2 lines were cut from the scene where Mr. Morooka leaves after the PA announcement.
Any of you aren't here when I get back, I'll write you up on suspicion of underage soliciting.
He's like sexual harassment in living, breathing form.
These lines are a little bit weird. Firstly, female student has definitely not met Kamoshida, and secondly, Morooka is not really guilty of any sexual harassment. In fact, he's more extremely puritanical and doesn't want anything sexual going on between students at all. In the first visit to the TV world, a few lines from Yosuke and Chie were cut while they were bumbling around on the way to what later turns out to be Mayumi Yamano's room.
What's with this steel frame? It doesn't look like it belongs here, even in a building complex.
I can hardly see my nose in front of my face. Hey, watch your step!
What's with this road?
Again, it's more cases of these lines don't really add anything of value, so they trim them down to make the scene a little shorter. And now's a good time to mention the voice clips that I'm using here come from the cutting room floor, which come from the PS2 version, so Chie and Teddy will have different voice actors to Golden. And now is the start of a common theme with these cut lines, cutting down on redundant exposition from Teddy. Yeah, you thought Teddy's exposition about the world in Shadows was bad in the original? It was gonna be even worse.
You have to go home before the fog clears, or else the shadows will run wild.
Shadows? Run wild? Jeez, can't you say anything in a way that makes sense? What the hell are shadows?
Shadows are shadows. They don't usually attack people who wander into here. But when they do, they're really, really dangerous.
Screw it, we're just not getting through to this thing.
These cuts actually came back to bite them though, because there's a scene a little bit later where Yosuke mentions Teddy warning everyone to leave before the fog clears. This is right after he says he's gonna go charging in because Saki just died.
Plus, remember what that bear thing said? How that place was dangerous and we should leave before the fog clears?
Teddy's lines where he mentioned that were cut, so Yosuke's lines later don't make sense in the final game. During this same scene with Yosuke that I'm referring to, he had one additional line that was cut.
So you've got a bizarre program showing people about to die, and a room in the TV that seems related to the case.
The line is basically just a Cliff Notes version of what they've learned so far about the Midnight Channel. Some more lines were cut from Yosuke and the protagonist's second meeting with Teddy, and one of them, I'm so sad to see this one lost.
You guys must be the ones throwing the people in here.
Rar my ass. Proof. What's always been like this supposed to mean?
That's why you came here, right? You want to know that too.
What are these shadows?
They're shadows that roam this world, and they've noticed you guys too.
The shadows are shadows? Real helpful there. Hey, are we going to be alright? Didn't you say a second ago that it gets really dangerous?
They're usually quiet. I think we'll be okay. That's what I said. I'm just a guide.
And yes, there's yet another What Are Shadows exposition scene. They might have been a little unsure about where exactly to put this information. In the scene where Yosuke, Teddy, and the protagonist are walking through the Twisted Shopping District, Yosuke has one cut line about glasses.
By the way, these glasses are amazing.
Right after this line, there's a duplicate of the difference is like night and day line from the previous scene, which implies that Yosuke's comments about the glasses ended up being moved from this scene to the previous one. Inside the Twisted Liquor Store,
The inside's just as bad. Looks like a tornado came through here.
we have this speech.
This is it! I can feel the power!
Ah! It's a shadow! It's just been born. I've never seen this happen before. The shadows nearby are starting to react to it. If they all gather here, things will get out of hand. We have to stop it now or it'll be too dangerous.
These lines might sound a little familiar to you. This is Shadow Yosuke's transformation sequence, but the final game gave that its own anime cutscene, and so this dialogue was no longer needed. A lot of dialogue from Yosuke and Teddy was cut from the scene afterwards. Firstly, this strange line by Teddy.
Anyway, I'm surprised the shadow attacked its host.
Which completely contradicts what Teddy said about shadows in the previous scene. Some musings by Yosuke on what Teddy just said about the fog. In the final game, this was replaced by a protagonist dialogue choice.
You said the fog lifts in this world when our town gets foggy, right? And the shadows go berserk when the fog lifts. Both victims were found dead during heavy fog in town, which means...
I knew someone wandered in here, but I couldn't do anything.
And a warning from Teddy.
Oh, and when it's foggy in your world, don't come in then. It's like I said before, that's when the fog clears here, and that's when the shadows go berserk. And that's when I hide.
While I really like the delivery on "that's when I hide," I can see why they removed these lines, because you never even have the option to go into the TV on foggy days anyway, so you wouldn't need to be warned about this. On Yosuke's conversation with the protagonist on the way to school the next day, which leads to the formation of the Magician social link, he had quite a bit of lines that got cut.
If we shrug and turn away, there's no telling who will fall victim next. Honestly, stuff like that going on in my own backyard pisses me off more than it scares me. I'm a big city boy, but I can't deny this town has some great stuff. I want to get revenge for Senpai. And don't forget, we made a promise to Teddy. Little guy's too adorable to hate. Finding the culprit will be good for the whole town, too. The police can't do it, and neither can anyone else. It's up to us. And we've got no choice. And I'm not doing this just for the thrill of it either.
These next few lines come after Yosuke considers the possibility they receive the power from someone else.
Well, maybe that's pushing it. I wonder, though, how big is that place? When you think about it, the existence of another world blows your mind.
And these next two lines come when Yosuke realizes the protagonist had the power to enter TVs before gaining his persona.
I don't know. You just seem special somehow. I can't really explain it.
Yosuke lost a couple of lines from the scene where they're convincing Chie not to go in with them.
All right, sorry. But since this is your first time, keep to the back, okay?
In addition to quite a lot of dialogue from Yosuke that got cut from the scenes just before Yukiko's castle.
Stuff like who I am. You said that was my homework. It feels like a normal person, not like Sensei or Yosuke. Like you, Chie-chan. You're normal.
Normal? Oh, you mean they don't have that power? Then they didn't come in on their own. Someone must have thrown them in here. Oh, but before we get going... Hey, Teddy. I've been doing my own thinking about who I am. I mean, I've never thought seriously about anything like that until now. I think the reason I came to this town and got this power is to solve this case. That's why I'm determined to get to the bottom of this no matter what. I don't want to see anyone else falling victim to this bastard.
There's also an unused protagonist dialogue choice here. The options are, you said it,
You're embarrassing me.
what a crock,
Hey, cut me some slack.
and let's make it happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, stop being such a show-off. You're so arrogant.
Enough with the sidetracking already. Come on, let's get going.
Congratulations, Chie, you just summed up why that scene was cut. Here are a few more cut lines from just before entering the castle.
But this world probably is involved somehow. That makes sense. That's weird. I've been thinking a lot about how your world is connected to here. What's scoring a hot stud?
And after defeating Shadow Chie, there are some very interesting cut lines from Teddy.
Night's around the corner. It gets dark here at night, too. Shadows love the darkness. That's why they get stronger at night. We won't stand a chance against them.
Are you serious? Why didn't you tell us sooner? There's no way I can take on anything more right now.
I can see why they might consider this confusing lore, especially since you don't even have the option to enter the TV world at night anyway. But does this mean that Seize was fighting shadows on hard mode the whole time? There's also some more cut lines from Yosuke and Chie during the scene where the party decides to make the protagonist the leader.
Even if nothing will happen to Yukiko-san until the fog lifts, we still want to get her out of here as soon as possible.
As soon as possible. Yeah, I agree. By the way, Yosuke, you seem pretty, I don't know, cool about all this.
I'm not cool about it! I just want to be careful about this. If we screw up, we're dead. Yukiko-san's life is at stake. And ours too.
You're right. Sorry.
Nah, I'm sorry too. Man, I keep making you apologize today.
Now we skip to after rescuing Yukiko. Yosuke got one line cut.
You really can't remember how you ended up in there?
And then we see the first Meanwhile in the Fog-Shrouded Shopping District scene. So these scenes are still in the final game, the dialogue is completely intact, but all of these lines were fully voice acted. The voice acted versions are just not in the game, and you will see why once we get to the second Meanwhile sequence. In the scene where the boys eat the girls' lunches, Chie got one line cut.
Because it seems to me you're asking for a taste of my forbidden technique.
There's 3 lines that got cut from the first gag glasses scene.
Is she okay?
Does it look good on me? Put them on, I want to see.
And right after the gang hangs out with Nanako for the first time, establishing the Justice social link, there are a few lines from Yosuke that got cut.
We're way more immature than she is. Though considering all that stuff they went through together, I'm not too surprised. They're some great girls.
I'm just realizing now that Yosuke lost quite a lot of lines. The poor guy can't catch a break. And so, from here onwards, cut dialogue mostly amounts to a line or two at most. So you've probably realized by now where the majority of the cut lines were. The prologue segment of the game. Yes, the already infamously long and wordy prologue was going to be even longer. And just to give my personal opinion here, I'm okay with most of these cuts, well, apart from this one.
Rar my ass!
All they did was just remove redundant clunky exposition, and in general just make things flow a little bit better. I don't think we lost anything major from all of this. But there's still some cut lines to cover, although they're very few in number. So during the Kanji arc, firstly, Chie lost 1 line after Kanji's news report.
We'll talk about whatever we see after school tomorrow, so keep your schedules open.
And now, meanwhile in the fog-shrouded shopping district, take 2. And this is your final spoiler warning. If you don't know who the killer is, please stop watching this video now.
Again.
So, yeah, they removed the voice acting from these scenes for obvious reasons. I don't think they were ever meant to be voice acted to begin with. I think they just had Johnny Young Bosch read these for completeness, but it's still a pretty blatant spoiler as to who the killer is. Although it does actually confirm something. There were some people who thought that these scenes with the person saying again was Namatame. But these unused voice clips confirm that it is actually Adachi. Yosuke lost 1 line from the scene where Kanji joins the party officially.
So, how do you feel, now that you've faced yourself?
Nanako had 1 line cut from the magic trick scene.
How did you do that?
After Teddy blows himself up against Shadow Risei, Kanji had 1 line that got cut.
Hey, is Teddy dead?
Igor lost a few lines from the scene where you go to the Velvet Room again in your dreams and you get the ability to fuse more than 3 personas.
I've been waiting for you. It's been quite some time since I summoned you this way.
From the scene in Juness after you apprehend Mitsuo in the TV world, Yosuke lost 2 lines.
Juness. So, did you really do it?
And there's a few lines that got cut from all of the post-Mitsuo the case is totally over guys wrap-up.
That was something my shadow did.
So, is that what went on when Yukiko-senpai got kidnapped?
Scoring with guys? Sauna?
Nah, I'm overthinking this. Anyways, since you're our leader, at times like this, you gotta make the call. Dude, you've been watching too much TV.
Yosuke got a few lines cut where he reminisces about Mystery Food X.
Oh crap. I think I'm getting sick already. It still haunts my nightmares.
Naoto lost 1 line from her speech at the club on the school trip.
I myself am the 5th generation. I currently live with my grandfather.
Does she ever specifically describe herself as 5th generation in any other scene? I feel like she does. After the news report with Naoto, Yukiko got one of her pleasantries cut.
Good morning.
Meanwhile, in the fog-shrouded shopping district 3, the even more spoilery sequel!
Damn it. Again.
And there's a few lines that got cut from the beauty pageant where Naoto refuses to participate.
Well, if you're not feeling good, I guess it can't be helped.
Yes, I'm very sorry.
And after you took the time to change, too.
The others forced me.
Dojima lost one very powerful line from the scenes with Nanako in the hospital.
She's my only daughter.
And one of the doctors got a line cut from those scenes too.
She's unconscious, but she may still be able to hear us.
Now we jump to Adachi's confession scene, and if you thought the scene with him and Saki was creepy before...
Huh? I wasn't doing anything.
Look, don't worry. Just do what I tell you, and it'll be our secret.
Next up, there was supposed to be a scene with Igor that played after you exposed Izanami, but before you went to the dungeon to confront her.
Welcome. Well now, I am honestly surprised to see your journey headed towards such a destination. Not content with solving the mystery of your fate, you discovered the mystery's source, and now prepare to face it. The enemy before you now is something that can only be described as a god. It will indeed be a grand finale to your journey. Well then, I bid you good luck.
There was already a lot of dialogue and story before the true ending, and really everything Igor said here was already obvious, so I can see why they cut this. And finally, a few lines from the pre-battle dialogue with Izanami got cut.
No wonder I chose you. Then from here on, the fate of this world is upon your shoulders. If you cannot ward me off, know that the world will end thereafter.
Huh? Wait, did she just say the world's gonna end if we screw up?
Come on, this'll be nothing. All right, let's put a real end to this.
And we end this on Yosuke losing more lines. Fitting. So, that is all of the cut main story dialogue from Persona 4. Like I said, I don't think we lost anything substantial. It was just trimming the fat from some bloated scenes, especially the prologue. And considering that Persona 4's prologue is already accused of being overly long even with these cuts, yeah, it was probably a good decision. But it's still interesting seeing what ended up on the cutting room floor. So, that'll be the end of the Persona 4 unused content. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you again for the next game that I cover.